The new manager Frank Rijkaard, is it worth it if you already have a long ball counter manager? Let's see. Now, of course, it costs 500 coins, that's technically less than a fiver, but I get it. For those of you who play RTG or don't spend, you can just get a GP manager Valbuena, which is proficiency 85, and we explained the connection between managers and the game and player overall and boost in separate different videos. Now, of course, I signed them, as you can check it. What's special about Frank Rijkaard, you'll be able to play position game and long ball counter at the highest proficiency. Now, obviously, the most effective tactics in the game for the meta is quick counter, long ball counter. Maybe when a manager comes up with a quick counter, long ball counter proficiency 88 or 90 in the future, yeah, that would be the best possible manager in the game. I'm not a fan of long ball counter per se, but it is effective, it is meta. It doesn't go between long ball counter, quick counter, position game, out wide, and then long ball the last, I would say. So in that order, the best tactics in the game. Now, if you already have a long ball counter manager booster, whether it's Deschamps or Ten Hag or the most recently Arteta, I would say if you care more about having a manager with two boosters for ability, I would say personally Arteta is the best one, considering the two boosters are key abilities. We made a video about that. Personally, I prefer to have two different effective tactics where I can switch based on match situations, that I can play fluidly, switch between position to long ball counter or quick counter to long ball counter, or if I'm playing position I want to press. So I would say Rijkaard is perfect for those of you guys who play long ball counter, and occasionally you may face somebody getting comfortable passing at the back. You can instantly switch to position game, where usually it's good to have a patient to break down your opponent, especially if he goes blue defensive mentality early in the game. You can press him higher, good frontline pressure. I think the pressing for position game, whether it's in your half, in the mid pitch, or in the final third, it's much more balanced than quick counter in a sense. But the most aggressive manager, in my opinion, for quick counter has to be Xabi Alonso. So is it worth it to sign Rijkaard if you already have Arteta? Well, we gotta get into it quickly, and also we're gonna show up a little walkthrough about my squads with Frank Rijkaard and how it's been so far. Before that, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Socratos. Don't skip, there's a giveaway for it, you can win a shirt for free. I'm a personal user of this website. I like my jerseys and I refuse to pay 90 quid in the store for it. So whether you're looking into sportswear or retro kits or modern kits, as a variation of everything here. Now, of course, you can have a browse to it. It's free postage. Obviously, have a browse, see what you like. Their prices are very reasonable. You can customize it with number and etc. Basically, you get a discount. I get a small commission. They make the sale. We all help each other out. You got your retro club kits from Inter Milan to AC Milan to retro national kits as well, which probably I'm looking to get the Brazil one. Ooh, I like this one actually. Is that the... Before the checkout, you simply come here, enter your coupon, which is PESEP, boom, you get your discount here with a percentage off. And as you can see, these are the recent kits. I got it myself. Is a Barcelona retro, Man United, and AC Milan. Also, I am giving away 2 of the AC Milan with eFootball, AC Milan Special Edition with eFootball sponsor on Tears of it. I am doing a giveaway on Twitter right now today, which is the 12th of January 2025. I'll probably pick a winner in tomorrow or the next 2 days. So if you have a Twitter account, go in there. If you just scroll down on my Twitter timeline, you'll see it. You'll see, you can't miss it. I think I posted about 5 or 6 days ago, somewhere around here. There we go. It's that simple. All right, now back to the video. As I explained, is Rijkaard worth it if you already have a long ball counter manager? If you like to have a second tactic, and particularly position game, then go for it. In my opinion, if your main tactic is long ball counter, a lot of time when people time waste or play 5 at the back, not every 5 at the back, like they play most of the passes in their own half. It's like a more of a classy time waster in a sense. So in my opinion, if your main tactic is long ball counter, it's always good to have a second option that you can press with it. Because if you face somebody who's good at keeping the ball with good ball retention and a professional time waster, you're going to be in problem. It can be very, very frustrating. So ideally, if I'm playing long ball counter, I want my second tactic to be something more aggressive with frontline pressing, like quick counter or even out wide. But I think position game, it's better than out wide and long ball. So for now, I think Frank Rijkaard, for those who play long ball counter, in my opinion, is a good option to have position game. Unless you are that good, you can figure out the way to even be more aggressive with long ball counter. You can be more aggressive with long ball counter by simply playing 4-2-4. Let's say you're playing a classic, meta system in a way. Not this one. This is just my fun formation. Let's say you're playing a classic meta formation, something like this, and your opponent's time wasting. You simply just go 4-2-4. Let's say this is your long ball counter tactic, playing something like this. Just a generic meta, really. It's kind of been a meta for PES for years. You simply can go something like this, or you can go something like this at AMF here. You know, it could work. Maybe not 4-5-1, because good players who time waste a lot, they're good at it. They know exactly what to do. They want you to press and so on. So in my opinion, it's better to be offensive and press tactically rather than adding more players, because it all depends who you face. In my opinion, there isn't a perfect way to combat people who time waste or people who need to change your tactic, be aggressive against them, because you face different opponents. Some crumble under pressure, some don't. Some looks, the way they play as a mind game is exactly what they want you to do to actually press them. So these are my setups right now, and again, this is a quick walkthrough regarding the manager. We're not getting too much into formation and tactics. We got separate videos for that. At the moment, I don't really play the meta. That 4-2-1-3 personally bores me. I'm not saying people who use it is boring, but the Diamond 4-3-3, it's simple. It's not an AMF. That's why I call it Diamond 4-3-3. I think it's perfect when you play long ball counter. If you want something easy and meta and effective rather than anything fancy, because in this game it's very hard to have fun and stay consistent. It's not like PES. You could absolutely get owned against the average free team or somebody who's struggling to get to Div 1 in a sense. Like if you face somebody, let's say you regularly make it to Div 1 easily at least, but you face somebody who never made it to Div 1 in many phases and many seasons. Ideally shouldn't be a challenge, but you cannot underestimate anyone. So you got to go out there with your best, simple, easy setup in a sense. So with this plan, long ball counter is a simple 4-3-3. Obviously, if I want to be more defensive, I simply drop Hullet to AMF. The sub tactic, let's say the guy is time wasting. It really depends how you want to switch to a present tactic. Like if you're using Rijkaard, you're playing long ball counter. You have two options to switch your sub tactic. Your sub tactic is either a defensive formation to keep position to manage the game, or is an offensive formation. You want to switch to it when your opponent is time wasting or getting comfortable on the ball in his own half. And ideally, the best defense is offense in this game, sadly. Usually, I like to start with counter. Once I'm on 2-goal difference lead, doesn't matter what time or minute it is, I like to switch to position game and use a defensive formation like 4-2-3-1. Not to time waste, just to have more ball. If he doesn't have the ball, he can't score. And I usually play dangerous, really. In my opinion, position game is when you have the ball in the opposition's half, not in your own half for 70 minutes. So the first setup for me, it's the 4-3-3 diamond. You switch into position game. I think this setup for position game works the best. Or you simply go 2 CMFs flat beside each other and narrow these guys down to something like this. This one worked as well. And ideally, if you go something like this 4-3-3 flat 4 position as well, I recommend has to be playmakers. Like they're good. Even if you don't have boosters, if you have standard GP, like standard GP box to box, Barella will be perfect. But if we get a bunch of likes on this video, I will explain every single of these formations in a particular video for Frank Rijkaard, and I would recommend the players, the exact players to use in these setups, even if you have GP team, even if you have free team, it doesn't matter. Now the next setup, 4-4-2. Again, I usually go with unconventional formation and tactic to add fun factor into the game, but I'll be honest, mixing fun setups and staying consistent, it doesn't work as good as PES. It's very difficult to replicate real life football into it. So I used to use this setup a lot back in PES days with long ball counter, Diego Simeone. Now, I think with position game works perfectly as well. You got a defensive fullback, attacking fullback, anchor or destroyer, box to box or orchestrator. You need good dribblers on both sides because you gotta involve them a lot. If you play 4-2-2 position as your main, or you switch to it when you have to. Now the second one, long ball counter, something more simpler, something if you want to focus more down the middle, because when your flanks are attacking midfielders, they switch up and they are more central. While with this one, I normally like to play 2 side midfielders, but that could be very predictable in a sense of they both make the vertical runs. But if you have AMF and a side mid, then they will interchange and it will be less predictable. You will have more elusive runs under AI. And the third setup, at the moment, this one is a risky one. I don't recommend it in a sense, especially if you care about ranking after Div 1. But it's one of my favorite setup. I call it Total eFootball. I used it even back in eFootball 22. It's something like this with long ball counter. It's important to have 2 defensive destroyers on the side. I usually use tide marking, like I tide mark my opposition's 2 side wingers or strikers with the Davids and Makalere destroyers keeping the attack in check. A lot of times I can switch, I can go with 2 box-to-box on the flank or 2 orchestrators. Depending what I'm facing, I could have one side destroyer, one side orchestrator that drops while the destroyer presses, or a box-to-box goes up while the orchestrator drops. So it really depends what I'm facing and who I'm facing and how he plays. And as a second tactic, I think it's something more, not simpler still. It's position game 3-4-2-1. It can be very frustrated if you're on the lead, you switch to something like this, that you will have more control of the midfield. Unless you face a very good meta player. Most meta players usually 1 pass to the final third, 1 touch pass, first time shot, rinse and repeat. They will do that until they score. So a lot of time having too many midfielders, it's very inconsistent in a sense. But I enjoy this formation very often. I think this formation works with long ball counter as well. But with long ball counter, I would say switch Davids and Gerrard with maybe side midfielders, ideally a fullback and a box-to-box, or a good offensive winger and a fullback and so on. Hope you guys find the video useful. Till next time, ciao for now.